And Facebookers, you are absolutely welcome to comment and question and share in the community. Oops, wrong button. Even within Facebook, it's kind of an interesting thing we're doing. So if you're participating in Facebook Live, awesome, welcome. If you're participating in Zoom, awesome, welcome. Comments and questions in the chat in both of those locations would be totally rad. So here we are, making the most of social distancing, live streaming citizen science to the rescue. I hope that we can provide some really awesome advice and insights. And I hope that we're gonna, I think that the expertise that we have, even just in our participants, we now have over 199 participants, 200 participants. The expertise that is housed within 200 participants who are all facilitators of citizen science is extraordinary and absolutely exceeds the content of these slides. So I hope that you guys share with each other your expertise as we move forward. And so we've already started doing this, but if you're just joining us, tell us about yourself, tell us about your name, what organization you represent, any citizen science event or project. You can do that in the chat. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little chat icon. You can type that if you're in Zoom. If you're in Facebook Live, you can do that right in Facebook, and also share with us your zip code so we know where you're joining us from. That would be a huge help. And while you do that, we're going to introduce ourselves. My name is Ariel Zich. I'm the Education Director at Science Friday.
I'll go next. I'm Caroline Nickerson. I am the program manager at SciStarter, and I am so excited to be here.
And I am Xochitl Garcia. I am the K-12 program manager at Science Friday, and I'm losing my voice.
So she's going to model nonverbal participation and hosting, which, as it turns out, is one of the coolest things about doing live streams. So she'll be helping us a lot, and you'll see her in the chat. She also does have contributions to make even in her broken voice. We're so happy we're all here. And so we're going to start this with a conversation starter. And this is going to go really quickly in that chat with 200 people. So feel free to sit back and watch or participate. But we're kind of interested in knowing how you're feeling about live streaming. Because this is a feeling question, we are asking you to do it in the chat. Anything, and also if there's anything that you want to make sure that we discuss, like if you're like, actually I totally have this under control, but what I really need is you to talk about this or you to talk about that, now is the time. And I see a lot of introductions still going on, which is awesome. Keep going, everyone. Peggy Notebart, oh, we love Peggy Notebart. Hi. Love that museum or that gardens. Yeah, so and we're seeing folks from all around the country, which is really extraordinary. I think you'll find we see a lot of Laura's interested in the platform for live streaming. Absolutely. We are going to be talking about platforms a lot, and we'll make sure we make time for that. So a lot of wonderful working on developing a digital citizen science platform for school children. Cool. That's so exciting. We have I know that Caroline is full of examples of really great examples of that are already doing that. Earth Day alternatives and how to make online activities engaging. We're definitely going to talk about that today. Citizen science is a really powerful tool for doing that. Connect people to nature given all the restrictions on park access. That's a really interesting one. That's absolutely key. And I think will be really important to a lot of our groups. Folks who use Facebook Live, but our instructors are offering a certification curriculum. Okay. And so what I think, if I could describe our encouragement, interest in older adults as citizen scientists, folks without tech access, we're going to address that. If I had anything reassuring to say to you right now, it's that right now is probably going to be the best time to do live streaming in any of our lives, or maybe at least in the next decade. No, seriously, this is actually the best time we could possibly imagine to set foot into this space. So if you're new to live streaming, like Lisa is, thank you for sharing, Lisa. This is a good time to get started because you're going to be more successful now than you would have been if you had done it even 4 weeks ago. So live streaming is a really important thing a really important tool right now. Everyone agrees. All of the tech companies are reeling. They're soaking up users right now. Interest in the internet is huge right now because we're all stuck inside. There's nothing else to do. But also live streaming is one of the few ways that we can connect with each other. Every single event that existed until now, including like symphonies, live concerts, lecture series, even things that used to happen on campuses, they're all going live. They're all happening on live stream. And what it does is it means that as a whole audience, every person that you had intended to interact with in the next 4 weeks, those people are all being taught how to move into live streaming and how to go there as an audience. So your audience is going to be more literate in live streaming now than they've ever been before. And I see a lot of interest and questions about privacy issues on platforms, standalone mic versus built-in mic. If you're hearing me right now, I'm using the built-in mic. If you listen to Science Friday on the public radio, on public radio this Friday, you'll hear the other version of that, the kind of extreme other end of the continuum. But we will, technical issues aside, I think that's a really good question too. Why live stream? I'm putting this here not because you don't all have to live stream now. It's sounding like from the chat that a lot of you are like, well, I'm live streaming because I have to, because we lost the opportunity to do this event in person. But there's actually really good reasons to live stream. The first is accessibility. Live stream in a lot of ways is actually more accessible than an in-person event or a person-to-person facilitated event, especially in situations where you're sharing information. And that's because it can be viewed, heard, and hosted anywhere. So it's geographically accessible, sure, but it also can be recorded. It can be slowed down. It can be translated and captioned. And just as an example of that, I will actually start our live captioning in this platform really quickly and make sure that I have that option. And I can actually show you guys what live captioning looks like while I'm talking about things like accessibility. Interactivity, good live streams feel like conversations. So you guys are in a really, really big live stream right now, but if you're willing and able and brave, you can host conversations that are actually a lot more interactive. And we're going to show you some ways to make conversations interactive, even if you can't. Participation from hosts, guests, regardless of geography, we talked about that, but there are also a lot of the platforms that we're going to share with you today are free. You can get an insane amount of work done even in a free platform. And so and if you're willing to spend just a little bit more money, there's also opportunities to do really, really big stuff with the platforms that we're going to talk about. So yay. So there's really good reasons to live stream, even if you don't have to. We're going to launch our first poll, which is I'm asking, what is your current level of streaminess? Are you a never seen a live stream person before and this is your first time even coming to one? Have you only watched live streams but never participated? You should see a quick poll pop up. If you don't see it, it should be flashing at the bottom of your screen right now. If you've hosted live streams before, you're fancy, that's great, but maybe you're here because you want to go a little bit further. I'm trying to get better. If you're a total boss at live streaming, you're just trying to see how bossy we are at live streaming, welcome. Welcome, boss. And I hope you participate in the chat and provide support to everyone else. So please vote. We will see that vote soon.
Yeah, we have 175 of 247 have voted so far.
That's a pretty high response rate. I'm very happy about that. Oh, yeah, if you're just joining us, the transcription is coming from Google Slides. It does require an internet connection to work, but if you're live streaming, that also requires an internet connection, so you're probably going to be in that boat anyway. The chat comments, are they going to be accessible and when the conversation is recorded?
Yes, they will be accessible. Okay,
cool. Yeah, and we'll be trying to also use those to take notes on other things that have been requested, other resources, links, and things like that in the documentation that we'll share with you all, both in the posts and also in the subsequent blog posts that'll feature the recording of this presentation. All right, I think we can probably close the poll at this point. Oh, good tip. Jason says that Microsoft Live and Teams also generates closed captioning. All right, so let's look at this. How are we doing? Most of you guys have at least seen or watched live streams before. A whole lot of you have participated in a live stream before in chat, polls, emoji, claps, camera discussion. Awesome. That's about half of you. And then we do have a couple of super users. Welcome. Google Slides works well with Google Slides as a replacement for PowerPoint. I'm sorry, I'm like doing two things at once. I should slow down. And I will show you guys again how to set up the captioning we're using during our open floor at the end, I think. All right.
All right.
So, oh yeah, sorry, go for it. Caroline, did you want to?
Yeah, I just stopped sharing results. So
Cool.
looks like about 50% of you has some comfort, but are here to learn, which is great. Yes,
welcome. And the polling function that we're using is via Zoom. So different platforms we're using. We're going to be modeling Zoom today, and also the Google Slides captioning, which play really nicely together. But basically everything we're doing, we're going to show you how to do, and if we don't, make sure that you bug us for it. So that was an example of Zoom polling. If you're feeling like a raccoon dog right now, where you're adorable and categorically confused because you are in fact neither a dog nor a raccoon, or in fact are an expert in-person facilitator being forced to exist in live stream, and maybe you're feeling a bit shy, I just want you to know that's okay. Also, you're allowed to do things in your sessions like put raccoon dogs for absolutely no reason in your slides or in your presentation, and that's totally okay. I relearned about raccoon dogs like last night, and I decided to put it in my slides because guess what? We're all trapped inside, and it's kind of cool to think about weird animals from Japan. You're here, we're stoked. This is a great opportunity to share. So this is a learning and collaboration space. We've already gotten intel and insights from folks in the chat. We're going to keep surfacing those as we go. Yes, Tanuki, thank you, Haley. But as we go and work through this, fear not the chat. Please ask questions in there. We're all collaborators right now, especially in this work. Also, it's a weird time and it's harder than normal. That's okay, we're all doing our best. So if you're feeling really stressed out and overwhelmed and like you're gonna do this thing imperfectly, that's okay, that's how we're all feeling. And if you do your best, you're still providing a service to your community. And so that's like a pretty key thing to take with you. Be cheerleaders. If you hear good ideas from each other, like cheer, say, yeah, woo, that's awesome, or I like that too. And again, all of your chat spaces are a great opportunity for doing that. We're all gonna learn. So like in the next month, every single person in this session, including all of your panelists and some of those super users, are gonna learn a lot about live streaming. The whole entire community of education, outreach, and science, we're all learning about live streaming right now, and that's rad. So I think we're gonna see a big change. So just put on your learning hat and get ready to go. Let's make this fun. Caroline, take it away.
All right, so hey everyone, for those who just joined, I am Caroline Nickerson. I'm with the SciStarter team. Oh, oops, hold on, sorry. I accidentally opened this up in Facebook Live and I'm hearing an echo of Ariel. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that, everybody. So I'm Caroline Nickerson. I'm with the SciStarter team. So I know a lot of you know what citizen science is, but just in case, it's basically anything that a member of the public is involved with to contribute to real science. So it could be data collection, that's citizen science if you're supporting real scientific research. It could be you doing some analysis on an online project, like stall catchers, which we'll get to later in this presentation. It's just anything where a member of the public, someone without a formal scientific background, or maybe just someone who has a formal scientific background but wants to volunteer, helps a project that needs them. SciStarter is a connector of citizen scientists to projects that need their help. And to that end, there are over 3,000 projects and events that you can explore on SciStarter. SciStarter, which you can find at scistarter.org, also runs and helps with a number of programs. So we have a Girl Scouts journey where Girl Scouts go through an experience and are able to explore different projects that maybe focus on the natural world. We have school programs that we help facilitate, where students are able to access a list of curated citizen science projects and go through an educational experience. There are lifelong learning programs. One that I think is really cool that's on SciStarter is with OSHER at Arizona State University, where it's people over the age of 55 who are able to explore projects that we handpicked for them about issues they care about. There's a tools database that you can search to find different citizen science tools that you can use to contribute to different projects. There are corporate volunteer programs. So different companies have come to SciStarter and said, hey, of projects that are affiliated with y'all or that work with you all, what do you think would be a good experience for our employees to volunteer to? So that's part of it too. So, and Citizen Science Month is another program of SciStarters and a big reason why we're here. If you go to citizensciencemonth.org, you can see a number of resources we developed. And of course, things are changing very rapidly right now with evolving public health concerns. But we're encouraging everyone to pivot the in-person events they were planning for Citizen Science Month to celebrate citizen science to online. We're all in this together. I know that I'm currently in self-quarantine. I'm in my apartment. I love these virtual events because they keep me connected to something bigger than myself. I'm able to do citizen science and turn my curiosity into impact, so to speak. So you're here because you maybe are planning an event or are seeking to engage your community online, and we're here to give you those tools and different projects to spotlight. So if you go to citizensciencemonth.org, you'll be pointed to a number of resources, many of which have been recently developed specifically for virtual events, as well as featured projects, including those selected by one of our big supporters, the National Library of Medicine, as well as resources prepared by Arizona State University, like an introduction to citizen science module. So that was a long blurb. I spoke a lot, but that's everything in short.
That was great. And there's so much information we can't emphasize enough. I know a lot of you here have come through SciStarter, but keep going onto the site and do more because the information there's incredible. Sochi and I are here from Science Friday. We're an independent 501c3 nonprofit. We're a nonprofit media organization. We make public radio, videos, articles, lessons, activities. We do live events. We have a whole bunch of really great things that we do, and it's all in the service of increasing the public's access to science and scientific information. We view citizen science as like one of the key power tools for doing that. So every time that we turn folks on to citizen science, we see this incredible, any member of our audience, whether they're radio or online or newsletter, they love citizen science. They can't help themselves. And I just, that's kind of the beginning of our partnership with SciStarter. But one of the things that we found in our work too, and these are all of the ways that we do our work, is that live streaming has turned out to be a powerful tool for moving some of this work into other communities that we haven't reached before. Whether we're talking about sharing our videos and activities, whether we're training educators how to be better communicators of their practice, whether we're live streaming mega events that happen around the country, or even if we're just producing a live radio show, that live component and all of those different interactions that we have with our audience in this other space has been incredibly useful. And so when we started seeing these changes coming down the pike for Citizen Science Month, we figured this was a good time to share that experience and try to kind of build a community of practice around live streaming. So I'm also seeing so much Science Friday love in the feed. Thank you all for listening. Yeah, we're really stoked that you're all here too. And we've got a lot of really excellent resources being shared already. Thank you, Sochi, for putting those in there. And again, for those of you who are joining late, Sochi is kind of half silent. She's losing her voice, but she's an absolute machine when it comes to chat moderation and resources. Yay. All right, so to the meat of the work. Okay, the main thesis we have for all of you, the main thing, if we had to instill upon you one notion that is going to appease you and help you set forward with purpose, it's that live stream planning should feel like normal planning. Leave nothing out, make no excuses. If you really wanted to get people out to the beach to look at plastics on the shore and you are really bent that you can't do that, we need to get you as close to that as possible with live streaming. And you don't have to leave any of that at the door. The main ways that you plan an event, the three things you think about: the content, so what you're going to tell people or talk about or work with them on; the culture, that tone that you set with all of your participants; and the logistics for getting them there and making sure they have their boots and their bags ready to pick up beach trash. Those three things are still going to apply in a live stream context. And we're going to kind of walk you through how we plan those for live streaming. So part one, content. This is really easy. And again, you guys, if you're facilitators and you've done this work, it sounds like you all have, these are going to look really familiar. Know your audience, so who you're trying to reach, who your program is for. Establish your objectives, what you want those people to do, get out of your session or your live stream. And then the other thing, this is kind of more pedagogical, but give your audience control. How are you going to create student-directed learning or student-centered learning, or how are you going to act like a facilitator instead of a lecturer? And also, please, that we kind of think of as you're thinking about these things as we walk through them, go ahead and contribute kind of what you're holding in your head for your own live stream into the chat. I think that's going to help us a lot. All right, so know your audience. There's a lot of ways to define your audience. Some of them are new, like the word quarantine, like, are you under quarantine? Yes, no. And that's really relevant because some states have really strict restrictions right now and some don't. You can define them by profession, family role, age, needs. When we were looking at preparing this presentation, we thought about some kind of some ideas about how you all might be feeling and thinking. So we thought, well, maybe our audience for this presentation are going to be primarily informal educators who had planned on facilitating an in-person citizen science experience, but they're now forced to learn live streaming. Or maybe they're experienced facilitators who just would prefer to be doing this stuff in person. And maybe that's the need that we want to fix, or not fix, but like help address, is like that need. You could also all be total weirdos we've never met who will probably just cow repeatedly in the chat window. So far, instead of cow, can we type raccoon dog? Of course you can. That's an excellent suggestion, Anne. But like, seriously, this is perfect. This is a great example. Raccoon dog. We're trying to know your audience in advance. We suspected that most of you would be coming from this community of practice around citizen science work and science facilitation, and that seems to be the case. And actually, the reason we mentioned this cow thing is because chat moderation is a huge challenge, especially with young people. So, and that cow event has occurred already in the internet sphere. So it's a real example. Okay. If you think you know who your audience is, try to match your objectives to your audience. Again, this is kind of educator 101, but we'll just remind you. So if we said that our audience was probably experienced facilitators who strongly prefer in-person stuff, then our objectives for this session are going to be to reassure you and play up the experience that you already have and leverage that. So we want you to see modeled experiences of interaction. We've already been doing a load of that in the chat. And we want to try to replicate meaningful interactions because we want to reassure you that those actually can exist in live streams. We're going to try to give you some tactics for connecting with your audience, and we're going to try to help you be confident that you can do this thing yourself, that you can bring your whole practice to your live stream events. You don't have to act like, I wrote Plato from Science Friday, who's presenting in a webinar. Like, he doesn't sound like that, but like if he did, like, you don't have to put on your radio voice and leave and check your personality at the door. That's not what this is about. Giving your audience control. This is one of the scariest things. People are generally freak out about giving their audience control in other situations, especially in a live stream where there's hundreds of you. Because like if you pictured yourself doing that with an audience of 100 people, it might be a little wild. But we're gonna model that. Actually, Caroline's gonna model that.
Yes, and we're going to do it with one of my favorite citizen science projects, stall catchers. So I'm going to share my screen. And here we go. All right, so we're on SciStarter.org/NLM. So that's the National Library of Medicine's featured projects page for Citizen Science Month. So these are projects that they selected for you that they thought addressed environmental and human health and could be really impactful across a broad span of geographic areas, so all around the world and across the United States, as well as projects you can do from home, which are particularly relevant in the times we're living in right now. So Stall Catchers is a project where you can accelerate Alzheimer's research by playing an online game. And the name of the game, Stall Catchers, describes what it is. You're trying to catch those stalled blood vessels. And it's easier for me to show you than tell you. So we'll go ahead and continue the Stall Catchers. And I'm already logged in, and I'm on Team SciStarter. So once you all make your accounts, your SciStarter account, your Stall Catchers account, you can get all this set up as well. So you're looking right now at a video of a mouse's brain. This mouse has been infected with Alzheimer's disease, and you're looking at its blood vessels right now, and you can see that they're flowing, and the video is playing on a loop. So we look inside this circled area, the orange circle, and we try to see, is this blood vessel stalled or flowing? And we're able to recognize a stall when we look at the flow of white. And if we see an area that never becomes white, that always stays black, then we know that's a stall. So I think this blood vessel's flowing. I don't really see any stalls, so I'm just going to classify it. Oh my gosh, I'm wrong. Oh no. Well, that's the power of the crowd. Because they have a bunch of people looking at each stall, we can count on the annotation. And by having these annotations crowdsourced, by having a bunch of different people all over the world make these annotations of blood vessels saying whether they're stalled or flowing, they're able to speed up the search for a cure to Alzheimer's disease because they're able to test different data sets. They're able to, try different experiments related to blood flow and Alzheimer's. So we're trying another one. We're looking at this circled area. We're looking the flow of white. and we try to see if there's a stall. Okay, I think this one's for sure flowing. So let's try this one. Oh my gosh, I'm wrong again. Maybe you guys will have better luck. So I'll let you all vote in the chat, and maybe Sochi and Ariel can monitor it. If we look in the circled area, you see the flow of white right here. Okay, let's say, I think this one's stalled. I'll let you guys try the next one. I think it was stalled right there.
All right. And this is truly a challenge. So all of you, we're watching a stall right here. We're checking it out, or a thing, whether it's stalled or not. Do you think that blood vessel is stalled? Is there flow or no flow? Ready, set, go.
Circled area. We look in the flow of white. What answers do we have coming in?
I see yes, no flow, flow, no flow. Nope, no flow, no, stall. The vast majority of folks say stall, stall, no flow, no flow, stall, stall, stall. Stall, 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 stall. I'm actually, this is real time. No flow, stall, 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 stall. No flow, stall. That looks stalled to me. I think we've achieved a consensus. It's like
no, it was flowing.
Ah!
All right,
was it really?
More.
That's wild. Okay, we're gonna do one more. I feel like the person who said like the 1 in 5 or like 1 in 10 person who said stall or flow on that one should get like a prize.
Yes, we should get trophies.
No, Jenna Walker, you get points.
All right, so I'll click play.
This is harder than it looks, says Lisa. There's a tutorial which helps. That's absolutely true. All right, this one, do we say flow or no flow? Ready, set, go. Flow, flow, stall, no flow, 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 flowy, no flow, 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 stall, flow, no flow, stall, flow, no idea. Literally no idea. Stop, stall, flow, no flow, flow, stall.
We're doing flow.
This
and
is
flowing. Yay!
Yay, flowing. That's awesome. And then Lisa asked a really good question here, which is, do you ever get crickets or non-engagement at times in the chat box? How do you encourage if folks are quiet? Truthfully, that's a really good question. The short answer is that we usually either act extra silly or lower the bar. So you guys, all you had to do was write flow, no flow. That's not that hard. But if we had been like, please explain your answer, we would have had like a lot of fewer responses, which by like, we all do it. We're educators, we can't help ourselves, but like, it's kind of an incredible thing, especially with this many people who are this engaged. You guys represent a special audience, but like, it's an incredible thing. We can totally make this go, and for the most part, it will work. So I'm going to share with you guys some more ways to give your audience control.
Ariel, really quickly, I was going to add one good thing is it's similar to classroom instruction, where you kind of want to have like a follow-up in your back pocket, and the 5-second wait time rule, like give people a little bit of time to start to get engaged, and then jump in with like the silliness or the follow-up question or like another factoid. So like always have that little kernel in your back pocket.
Yeah, that's great advice. And that 5-second rule with an internet lag can be stretched to a 30-second rule. So one of the things you guys are going to see in every time we ask for your engagement in this, we almost always have a loaded slide that we can kind of start chatting about as you guys are adding your inputs into the chat, or as you guys are filling out a poll. And it's one, because we're chatty people, so it's like really easy for us to vamp, but like also it's a really good way to like kind of fill that wait time and then return to it to get a greater response. And we've already done a lot of these things that we consider ways of giving our audience control. So we share out your shares, right? Like if you're doing something cool, like we want to share it out in the chat. We've done polling. We've done do a thing, ask what happens, which we're going to do more of later. We can give awards. So I mentioned who we would give awards to if we had to. And I think that's like, all of these things are like pretty easy. It's like Pokemon, so try to catch them all. Go ahead and try to get as many of these ways of giving your audience control in your presentation as you can. It will soak up time, but it will almost always increase engagement. Part 2 is culture. And I'll ask my panelists also to do a time check too, to see how we're doing here.
We have 30 minutes left, so we're doing pretty well.
Awesome. Okay. Janine asked before we move on, is it audience control or audience engagement? And the answer is yes. They're two different things, but both of them are important. So giving your audience control means helping them dictate content. So we asked you guys, what are things that you really want to make sure we share before the end of the session? That's giving you control over the content we're going to deliver. We're like Science Friday is doing a bunch of live streams too for Citizen Science Month, and we're planning on actually having everyone vote on the questions that we ultimately ask our expert panelists, because we don't want to waste time on questions nobody cares about. We want to give them control over the content, but we also want to give them opportunities like with polling to keep them engaged and remind everybody what's going on. All right, so for culture, here we are. You guys are already immersed in our culture. We've been doing all these things. These are mostly things to remind yourself of. It's really easy to kind of forget culture when you go into live stream space. Like we kind of just are like, oh, I have to like switch into professor mode. That's lame. Don't be lame. Think about things like being yourself and bringing your whole self to this just like you would your work. Think about things like moderation, setting up norms, establishing a tone. We've already like worked really hard to establish a tone that like none of this is perfect. And if you guys all go out and do your first live stream and something goes wrong, guess what? That's going to be totally fine. In fact, I had a live stream yesterday where I was providing a training to hundreds of teachers and I got dropped from my own call and I had to call back into the webinar that I was running. And it just went wrong and it was totally okay. And my co-facilitators helped with that. So like, if you come into this space with being yourself, moderation, and playing with format, you're gonna have a good time. Here's some examples. Be yourself. Think about and this is a question for the chat and for our Facebook viewers too. How do you share your personality with your learners, trainees, and participants normally? So not necessarily thinking about live stream, but just think about like, what is it that you use to signal who you are as a person or as a scientist or as a librarian to the people who come to your space and who interact with your programming? Is it personal stories? I see Marcella does personal stories. You admit that you don't know all the things. That's such a good example. I think that's like rock star. Yeah. You usually ask icebreaker questions. Don't demean your audience. Some of us lecture for a living and don't like to be referenced as boring. This is true. There are really good lecturers. Thank you, Peter, for mentioning that. You use silly videos and metaphors. A bit of vulnerability is important. Earrings. Sochi, Caroline, I see some examples of how you've brought yourself to this session. Sochi's showing off just one pair of her amazing earring collection. Also, her background is pretty cool. Caroline, what are you wearing on your head?
I am wearing a gaiter, and if you stop sharing, I can quickly spotlight our video so we can.
Yes, let me stop share. Or yes, stop share. There you go.
All right, there we go. And Sochi is our spotlighted video at the moment, so we can see her beautiful earrings.
They're very cool.
All right, and I'll spotlight my video so you can see my gator hat. Go Gators.
If you spotlight me, I can show you my dog.
Yes!
Yes! Captain the Wonder Mutt is sleeping. Essential coworker brought to the webinar. And I'm also Go Gators too. I'm also a Florida UF alum, so that's totally rad. So, Lisa has a bunch of science-based earrings. Agreed. I wish I had a raccoon dog, Rebecca, but I don't think it would get along with my shepherd. So there's like definitely a lot of things that you guys already bring to your work, and there's no reason why you have to leave that out of your live stream work. It's t-shirts. Yes, we feel that strongly about science or other nerd t-shirts and hobby t-shirts. So I'll reshare my screen again here and get us back. Whatever it is that you need to do to be yourself is going to be pretty important. Let me see. Are you guys seeing my slides? Yes? Yes. Okay, good. Hopefully. I'm not getting a nod from Caroline or Sochi. Are you guys seeing my slides? Okay, good. Perfect. Just checking. So we've created a list here, but honestly, it's you. You do whatever you do. If you need like a lectern or a special pen to feel like yourself in your session, go for it. Go to town, whatever it is. Okay, this is maybe the part, we've already received a lot of questions about moderation. So this is one of the parts that we're going to focus on. And again, I think the chat's going to be really important here to surface issues. But moderation, heck yeah, you have to do it. Don't ignore it. As we start talking about moderation, please voice your concerns that you have about moderation and facilitation in the chat. Caroline and Sochi, if you guys can help track those and surface them at the end of the ideas that we've already shared here, that would be awesome. The main things you want to make, you're going to have to make some decisions about moderation early. Whether you go with Zoom or Hangouts or Facebook Live or Periscope or GoToMeeting or any of these things, you should have a sense of what you can handle in terms of moderation. How many participants do you want? If you want to manage a chat with random people, we're recommending less than 100 people should be involved in that chat. You all are experienced people, you're experienced professionals in a community of practice. So we were like, yeah, we'll do chat for 200 or 300 people. That'll be fine. How much swearing do you mind? So like, this is a proxy for imagine the worst case scenario and ask yourself if you're okay with that worst case scenario happening. If you can't handle someone cursing in your feed and you're broadcasting to a bunch of high schoolers, my strong recommendation would be to not enable chat. High schoolers are awesome and most of them are totally rad, and some of them also really like profanity as a source of art. I'm that person, I was. And while we're on the topic of students, generally same rules apply as if you're taking photographs at your events or taking video at your events. Try to avoid video or audio of minors without consent. So if you guys are doing a Zoom call and you want all of your participants to be in that Zoom window, if they're minors, that recording had better not go on the internet. It's okay if they see each other, if they're all in a class together, right? Like if you're broadcasting to a Girl Scout troop where they all know each other and they're all in there and you can see all their faces, or if it's your AP history class that's meeting, whatever it is, that's fine. The difference is when you put it on the internet and broadcast it to unknown entities without parental consent, that's not okay. And that is true for audio in a lot of states as well. And so we just said video, audio, photo of minors without consent. Be careful about that. How are you going to handle technical difficulties? We've already been helping you troubleshoot in the chat right now. So we have a few folks who've had some technical difficulties. Some platforms will have more of those than others. Think about whether and how you want to manage those. And then I added this last one, which is why it's in a smaller text, and we're going to visit this later, but know your platform's capabilities in advance. So if you like plan a Zoom webinar and broadcast to Facebook Live, but don't realize that that means that almost anyone with that URL will be able to see and comment on it, regardless of who they are and where they exist, then you might be surprised when some bad people show up in that space and you have a whole lot of extra homework to moderate, or you have to mute your chat and you have to ditch all of your interactive components. So just be really careful about that. The ugly part, expel, mute, and block bad actors. If you establish norms, enforce them. So again, this is more important for ultra public facing events. So for instance, if I was facilitating a discussion on, I'm trying to think of what a like really contentious event in citizen science might sound like, but actually flu near you is a good example where the topic of vaccination might come up. And you anticipate if you want to have a really robust discussion about flu near you and invite a whole bunch of people to the party, you might find that there's a lot of disagreement, and people can get mean when there's disagreement in chats or in a facilitated Facebook space. So if you don't establish norms early and say, like, be respectful, use nice words, like you support your arguments with evidence, whatever you want to do, enforce them if it gets out of hand, which means blocking and muting bad actors. And the converse of that is surf is awesome. When people are awesome, tell everybody about it. Be like, you're being awesome. That's a good thing to do. So highlight audience input. That's another form of facilitation that's super critical. And speaking of which, let me just get my last bullet point. Staff for moderation. You guys can tell right now that we're staff of 3, but we also have some sleeper staffers in this chat too. Darlene is here from SciStarter, Naheem is here from Sci-Fri. We've got folks who are like in there who are like super awesome as well, helping facilitate and helping staff the chat. But staff for moderation, because if you look through this list and you're like, I'm not sure I can do that all, then you should scale back your participation levels or scale back the size of your group to the point where you can facilitate it and you can handle it. Okay, let's go to the chat. What questions do we have about moderation or issues? can you designate anyone to be a moderator with expel, mute, block privileges, or do they have to have an account or be a panelist or a host account? It's going to depend. Specifically for Zoom, you need to be a host, but you can have those hosting privileges even as a free user. The nice thing about Zoom is that at a free user level, it's going to also have, like, limit the number of people that you can do this with at a time. Okay, and oh, good. We've got another slide where we've actually surfaced some of those questions here. Oops, and it's not refreshing, so I'm gonna. Oops. That's okay. I think what's happening is that it needs to be probably refreshed in there. There we go. I'm going to represent one more time.
This is the beauty of Google Slides, everyone. You can edit in real time as all the chats come in, and you can put them on a slide. Woo!
Yeah, good job, team. I actually forgot you guys were doing that. That's so rad. Okay, so here are your concerns related to moderation. Moderating when alone. We kind of already addressed that, but figure out exactly what you can handle and only allow that much to occur. So if you can only handle moderating chat or a live discussion, a verbal discussion on camera with 50 people at a time, then that's what you should do, and you shouldn't do it with 500. And also consider how not alone you might be. So Sochi and I do this a lot. We've got this incredible posse of educators who we've been working with for years. And sometimes they have a free evening and they're willing to work with us as moderators in some of our trainings or webinars. And they can show up and provide organizational knowledge and instruction and insight, and also help flag things that need to be removed in a volunteer capacity, or in like a, hey, thanks, we'll take it to coffee next time we see you capacity. But like whatever that is, you might not be alone. How do you handle moderation after the fact when people do not tune in right away? That's a great question. For better or for worse, latent viewing generally means it's going to be less interactive. That's better because with evergreen content, you can do things like turn off YouTube commenting or mute comments on a Facebook thing. So in some ways, it's actually easier. What's not great is if you really want those comments, you have to develop a workflow for going back regularly and dealing with it. Some things will allow you to, like some platforms, depending on how you do it, will allow you to preview comments before they're added, or before they like go into the hopper and are public facing. But that's generally, frankly, I think that's the exception rather than the rule. Good notes about establishing norms. Go ahead and cheat and look for other people's norms. I do this all the time. I norm shop. Sometimes you can find ones that you really wish you had thought of after the fact. You're like, oh man, I really needed a norm for that. You can also ask people for their horror stories and build norms to prevent those things. And then the third and coolest option is to co-create norms with the community of people you're working with. So educators, like when you sit down at the beginning of the year, you don't just say, these are the rules. You say, here's kind of what I was thinking. What rules do you guys want to have to keep each other safe and respectful and have a good time and make sure we don't mess up all our lab equipment? Like whatever, and I'm using analogies that I'm familiar with, but I know that all of you have context in which you've established norms before. Bring those into this space and think about how they'll adjust. Does anyone want to add to those norms, like Caroline or Sochi, that establishing norm step?
Yeah, I think those are the big ones.
If you're saving questions for the end, do you have one person writing down the questions as they appear in chat and then handle them at once? Those of you who can see, I've got a notebook on my desk. My iPhone is a panelist right now and is pointing, and I am trying to make sure that, like we already talked to, somebody asked a question about chat removal, like curating chats. I've seen it where people, instead of just creating the automatic PDF that comes out or copying and pasting all of the comments in a feed, they'll copy and paste all the comments in a document and then clean up the garbage and leave the ones that they want to surface or highlight for evergreen documents. And that can be really helpful. It's more work, but it's worth the latency, especially if you have a mess or a robust conversation, as we like to call it. And the bringing in an answer in real time or latently is totally up to you. You've seen me do both already. So we'll find, like, I have not committed to one or the other of those. Do people ever fill out photo release waivers like we would at an in-person event? So you can make that a part of your registration link. So you can make, in any of these things, you can even just create a Google form and say, like, tell me your name, your email address, your zip code. Read this paragraph that says that you're cool with me taking a screen capture of our discussion. And also here's some rules that we're going to have, and we're going to boot you. And once you click submit, you'll get sent a unique URL for this event. And what that will do is that basically, and then you can even have an intro slide at the beginning that says, if you're here right now and your camera's on, you are consenting. The only issue that the only main change is that between live streamed versus in person is that you won't know if those people are over 18. So like be a little bit careful with that and know that passive or like implied consent by presence is going to be a little dicey. It's kind of a risk reward trade-off. And I would, again, generally recommend only looking for waivers like that with small communities where you have a known quantity of your audience, not with like mega communities or public URLs. Can you designate anyone to be a moderator with expel mute? I think we talked about that already. We got that because I read through reading backwards. Okay, shall we press on?
Let's do it. And we're about 15 minutes out from end time. Okay.
I think we might have to skip our crowd the tap thing. I'll do a quick demonstration, which is really just to point out that you can play with format any way you want. So this is kind of going to our next slide, which is formats should be variable. We're talking now more about this like vibe and culture and content format. If you want to do a demonstration where you demonstrate that like magnets are a really useful tool for figuring out the material that your pipes are made out of, go for it. Like click it in. And it looks like my iPhone's probably getting hot, so it's getting a little slow. But like go ahead and do an overhead demonstration. Go ahead and do your scratch test on your imaginary pipes. I didn't have any pipes that were small enough to bring into my little light booth here, but like desk experiments, making another device like an iPad or an iPhone or any tablet or smartphone, excuse me, your like co-viewer is a really good way as a team of one to change the format quickly.
And if you stop sharing, I'll quickly spotlight your phone to demonstrate.
Oh, sure. That. Yeah, so like, let's see my massive desk. Yes, so like, here's the situation. And again, it's being a little pokey, but like if I had, let's pretend these are all pipes. If I have a bunch of mystery materials that are semi-metallic or appear to be bringing water into my home, I can help map infrastructure and report data about the service lines to my home to crowd the tap, which is one of the SciStarter, the official designation, I believe, is partner. Yes.
Affiliate projects.
Affiliate project. Thank you. So it's SciStarter affiliate project, totally working. If you want to know if it's mounted on something, yes, it is. Right up here. I actually have, I'm in what's called a light box. What was this? It's like $100 setup that is essentially a little white room with LED lights and a hole at the top where I can set my phone. If you don't have that, you can use a headlamp and a 2x4 set between a stack of books, and it's about as effective. I just like this because I can collapse it and stick it under my bed when I'm done. But you can do these you can do a fun scratch test and see if the metal is the same color as a penny or as not. So this is copper, which is pretty rad. It's nope, not magnetic. This one's steel. This one would absolutely be a steel service line. Same with our other objects. I'm going to keep this away from my computer so I don't wipe my drive. But the long and the short of it is mix up the format, go with the desk thing. If you're a big gesticulator, you might want to have your hands be a thing anyway. That would be pretty cool. Okay, we'll go back to the presentation now here.
Yeah, for those of you who are librarians, you may want to pick one of those featured projects like Crowd the Tap, and you could do just what Ariel did. You could do a demo of it and have people follow along at home.
Yeah, and we also, something that we're not doing today, mostly in the interest of time, but if I had an outdoor project and I still had access to outdoors as a facilitators, I would take you guys on a field trip. Right? You guys saw how I picked up my laptop and I pointed it at my dog so you could see my dog. You can do that with the tree. It doesn't have to be a dog. You can go outside and do it with a tree that's close to your source of Wi-Fi. It might seem silly, but also it might be so appreciated right now. Think about all those kids in apartments that can't get out to a tree at the moment. like those are opportunities for you to provide even an additional service, which is pretty exciting and cool. So go to town. These are some of our favorite examples. There's a doodle together with the guy who did Don't Let the Pigeon Drive a Bus, Mo Willems. There's a whole bunch of concerts. If you want to see examples of art, go Google the Social Distancing Festival for examples of how other people are messing with format. What else can we do? What other ideas do you guys have for changing format? Because frankly, PowerPoint slides aren't always it. They're not always the best. They're efficient, but if you're only trying to get one thing across and trying to get folks to do a project, get crazy. Go do that project with them and try to be or get somebody to be a camera person. Your quarantine buddy is probably looking for a project. All right, we're gonna step into the platform session. What is your favorite platform? Vote now. We have some of our favorites, which we're gonna share with you. And one of them's really obvious because we're using it.
People love Zoom.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks are going to be on Team Zoom at this point. But if you have another, or if there's one that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they forgot my favorite, the like Lucky Charms box platform, then I would be like, tell us in the chat. We can't vote, so we're going to let you guys tell us how it's going.
All right, we'll end it in like 1 second.
Okay, cool.
Last chance and end.
Awesome.
The people love Zoom.
The people love Zoom. And the crowd goes wild. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about the Zoom functions that we're using today. We're using Zoom Webinar and the Zoom functions that, or the functions that kind of exist on other platforms. I'm also going to go ahead and encourage that you would all consider whether you actually need Zoom. And so let's talk about why those things are real. Quick disclaimer, what follows are suggestions, unpaid, unsolicited, and subjective. So there are people who are professionals at live streaming who have chosen platforms that are not the same as the ones that we've chosen also as professional live streamers. We've all got our things. It's like gaming consoles or operating systems. Like if you're a Mac user or a PC user, we love you anyway. So like whatever you decide is good. If all you're doing is chatting with a handful of people, Google Hangouts is great. Everybody gets it. It's really intuitive. For less than 10 video participants, unlimited time with chatting, screen sharing, linking, scheduling. They can join by phone or by URL. Just do Hangouts. It's super easy, especially if you've got Chrome users. If you're working with folks who are Google Classroom literate, they're going to prefer this anyway because it's what they're on all the time. Ideal context, internal meetings, small quick gatherings, lots of screen sharing. I'm going to rush through this because many of you probably know what this is. The cool thing is like Google Hangouts is what we used when we had our child because it was the only thing our parents and we could both use because they didn't have FaceTime because they had Android devices and we had iPhones. It's that easy that even my 7-year-old parents could totally get it. So like that's, I think, the beauty of it, but it also works really well between like 2 people or 4 people. It's really particularly nice for small groups, and Sci-Fi uses it all the time for our internal stuff. If you're trying to do community building with less than 100 people, and if you don't really even have a need for like that long of a session, like say less than 40 minutes, free Zoom is awesome. So everybody right now with your personal email address can get a free Zoom account and be on Zoom. Most of you probably, if you've done that before, Zoom probably remembered you and was like, hey, you're back. And when you logged into this meeting, you can join by telephone or URL. You can give yourself a virtual background. I don't like to do that, but I'm into it. It's cool. Probably because I have very little disk space on my computer right now. All of the things that you guys can do or are doing right now, almost all of those are available in the free version of Zoom. So even though we're not using the free version of Zoom, we're doing a pro account with Webinar right now. A lot of this stuff is like almost all the stuff you're using right now is in there. And I'll talk about the difference between free and paid versions later. It's really great for communities of non-anonymous people. We talked a bit about why camera use can be a little dangerous. So like you don't want someone to like share inappropriate images or screen share something that's not appropriate for all ages or audiences, right? So which that kind of stuff tends to only happen when people are anonymous. Varying levels of internet connectivity. If you saw a little arrow pop up, that's probably Sochi annotating. Yeah. So there's annotation features, which are really cool, which we forgot to put in here. We talked about screen sharing, chat, Q&A, hand raising, all of that. It's really good for facilitating conversations.
We're at about 5 minutes, so we'll probably go a little bit over. If some of you have to drop off, we totally understand.
Yes, and all the slides will be online. Thank you for clarifying. Sorry. Okay. And the good news is, if you still only want to serve a community of non-anonymous people and have less than 100 video participants, but you want that to last longer than 40 minutes, it's only going to cost you 15 months for the entire month of April to make that meeting last a full hour or 2 hours. So it may be worth the splurge. Either, if it costs you the latte and bagel that you couldn't buy at Starbucks this week anyway because it was closed, do it. For giant interactive events, go with the webinar version. It has all the same Zoom stuff, but allows you interactivity with more than 100 people. That's why there's 200 of you in the Zoom version of this event right now chatting, is because we went with the fancy version. And you can go really fancy. So mega corporations will buy 10,000 participants so that they can host their all staff for their 10,000 person organization. The other thing that we're doing that's webinar specific is broadcasting to Facebook Live. If YouTube is your jam, you can put it there instead. Recorded sessions with engagement and retention analytics. Those of you who are running nonprofits or have to defend your content and your programming, those analytics can be really great because somebody is counting heads for you, and well, at the end you can say, and they all stayed and it was really great, and this is how many people participated in the poll, and those analytics can be really powerful impact metrics. More presentation and moderation tools, though frankly most of them you probably wouldn't use unless you're a super user anyway. And really this just gets you a lot of participants. We like it for trainings, conferences, fee-based events. Anytime you want to divide your audiences, 20% people you trust. I'm looking at you, Zoom community that are mostly SciStarter friends, and 80% random people on the internet looking at you, Facebook community. Just kidding, you're all great too. Whatever, if you need to divide an audience, the webinar feature is really nice. So you can go for the big reach in a safe way that doesn't require a lot of moderation, and you can go with high touch for the people that you know and trust. But it usually takes 2 to 4 people to host, moderate, and provide tech too. I'm seeing a lot of nodding because I'm ignoring the chat at the moment. If anyone would like to surface chat, please bring it in. Here's the list of things to think about when choosing. I just talked about all of these. The only one we didn't really get to, it was the Periscope Facebook Live. Sorry, I forgot that one. So she's really excited about that one. Yeah.
I really like Periscope. Just letting everybody know. Posts, like part of it is because with Periscope, you can limit chat to your people you follow. And in that way, you can sculpt the chat that's going on or the comments that are posting during your stream, but everyone can use the heart reactions or the different reactions. So you can see what the audience is feeling as you go through, but it's another way to curate like the comments in chat that is happening.
And I also will say, many of you might realize already that there could be an age discrepancy in the type of people you get with each of these platforms. Instagram is a younger platform with younger people in it than Facebook is, than Twitter is. And so like, if you want to Instagram Live and you have a community in that space who you know to be younger and most engaged on Instagram, don't force them into some other weird platform. Put them into the platform that they're already excited about broadcasting in. Thank you all for putting us into your professional learning cycle today. I know a lot of you are headed out for other webinars. We're so excited you're here, and thanks for coming. But I think, we are in the home stretch here. This shopping list will be in the slides when we are done. The last thing we'll say is just make sure you try a thing. You try it out. Whatever you pick, go and experiment with it. Give yourself some time. Attend a stream, screen capture everything, host your own private stream, host a practice stream with colleagues after that. Make all your mistakes as much as you can with friends and family, and then schedule that rehearsal stream and actually host it to a public live stream, right? So practice. We're doing a lot of that at Science Friday right now, gearing up for the start of our live streaming season next week. So, and then ask participants how it went. If you're here and you're still here, Please do look for a survey that will send you about how this went and tell us if it was helpful. It would be helpful for us. We'll be sure to ask you that. And last but not least, or certainly not least, and certainly not last, it's okay if you end up being a GIF. So if everything goes wrong and it's a little weird and you look like this lady who's like trying to get this thing to work, it's okay. Do your best and learn from it and record your learnings and try to move forward, because it's going to be great. It's going to be totally awesome. Those of you who are lingering, accessibility, plan for slow internet. We don't have too many callers in. I know we still have 220 participants right now in Zoom, and some of those are going to be phones, but both Zoom and Hangouts offer call-in options, which are great for slow internet, especially if you offer those slides latently or even beforehand. Don't use things like the word accessibility written vertically on the side. That's actually not accessible. It's meant to be ironic. Closed captioning, we talked about that, although I've stopped. I can restart it down at the bottom. We also think about ASL interpreters. We've been so impressed with Skype as Scientists for having a sign language interpreter at most of their events that are surveying New York City public schools and our Department of Education folks and others. They can be very expensive, or they can also volunteer their time. And we just ask that you try to respect their time and be awesome. Avoid loud colors, use high contrast, larger is better. Make everything available latently, post it along with your slides. We will be doing that. You guys, if you registered for this, and also in Facebook, we'll post a link to where you'll be able to find the recording of this presentation, some of the chat stuff that we talked about, the slides themselves, and also we'll share with you some of Science Friday's templates for planning the actual content of events so that you can use some of those. And we will be careful, read colors that look the same to colorblind people. Totally. Great. Red, green, guys, just, and even some purples and blues will get you into trouble. That's a good reminder, Anne. Thank you. Bonus, accessibility tools, Google Slides, live captioning demonstrated below. Hit the present button, hover on the bottom of your screen and click the CC button, and it just does it. This is a really good one, even for your live presentations later. If you want to do a transcription of anything you do online and have a recording, Otter AI, pretty great automated transcription, and you get like 10 hours free or something before they start charging you for it. It's amazing. So provide a transcript for your whole session and give it to everybody. And that's an even better way for folks who are who can't hear great or who don't enjoy listening to things. They might just want to read the transcript anyway. Google Translate is one way to translate your stuff into other languages. But also volunteers in your community are really powerful. Ask a Biologist at ASU is a great example where they've built this whole like volunteer community to help them make multilingual content. Think about tapping volunteers in your community, especially right now. People really want to have purpose and to help with things. So it's a really good time to ask for folks to help out with making stuff more accessible. Oh, Rebecca, that's the nicest thing ever. Thanks for saying. We're really happy that you're here. And I think everybody, we are like, it is like truly a heartwarming experience to see so much great expertise and warm and fuzzies in the chat. Are we going to do a transcript of this too? I think probably it's going to take a little time. Give us a couple days. That's the only thing like our in-house transcription service will have to do. But yes, I think I will put that on my list of things to do. Thank you. All right, take it away, Caroline.
Yes, well, so here's our call to action. And thank you for those of you who still have time to stick around. It's Citizen Science Month. Let's do this. Citizen Science Month is in April, and we want to provide as many awesome remote opportunities for people to engage as possible. And we want you all to help facilitate these opportunities for your community, as well as for other people who might find your event through SciStarter. So number one, find a project or theme to spotlight during your event via citizensciencemonth.org or scistarter.org/NLM. You could do crowd the tap like Ariel did. You could spotlight stall catchers virtually for your community. Just find some sort of theme to build your event on. That's number one. Number two, if you don't have Zoom or you need help facilitating your event, I'm here to help you. Every Thursday at 8 a.m., 11 a.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern, I am available for these open calls, and we're happy to help you plan some sort of event and help you facilitate it. So please join us. We're here to help you. As much capacity as we have, we'll do webinars with you on Zoom. And then number 3, add your event to SciStarter. So once you have some sort of virtual event, and if you want participants to find it, go to scistarter.org/add-event. So we have a database of all these awesome virtual opportunities to connect with people. I know I'm going to be attending a lot of them in April. And here's an example. So Calvin from Clean Air Carolina, he had an in-person event where people were going to monitor air quality in Charlotte, North Carolina. And because of public health concerns and everything that's been happening, he is now having an online event. He's postponing his in-person event and taking the party to Zoom. And he's working with SciStarter to do AQ, IQ, air quality basics with Calvin. So you all are welcome to join that on April 8th. And that's kind of an interesting bonus of having virtual events. You can open it up into a broader range than could have attended your in-person event. Of course, both are awesome. Both are something we want you to do, especially once public health concerns allow us to have more in-person events again. But I really hope that we all kind of seize this moment as best we can. It's a turbulent time. You know, we're taking it day by day, but we hope that you're able to still have some fun. I mean, I have my Gator hat on. I'm still having some fun. And we hope that you have impactful, meaningful virtual events. And
we had a few questions about where to find things. We're leaving it now in the open floor. This is the end, friends. But just to ask Caroline again too, those open calls, it looks like every Thursday, yes, 8 and 11 a.m. Eastern time, Caroline, for those who want additional support.
Yep, that's right. We do them at those times because we want to help people across time zones. So you never know who in the world's going to tune in. So 8 a.m., 11 a.m., and 8 p.m. every Thursday.
Awesome. And I love EJ Walker's suggestion for a Google Doc of tools and best practices. We'll be sharing a lot of the ones ourselves. We'll have to figure out if we have the bandwidth to moderate a Google Doc, but that can be shared and added to as well. But I certainly one that can be shared, and then we'll have to we'll talk amongst ourselves. I know there are a few floating around as well. And thanks everyone for joining us. I know that we're now seeing the numbers fall. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. The recorded version will be available to share, and please make sure to share this with anybody else that you think might be of use to. All of those resources will be posted alongside it on SciStarter's website, blog. Yes?
Yes, on the blog and on citizensciencemonth.org.
Very cool.
As many places as we can post.
As many places, yeah. Science Friday will be posting a fair bit too, and I think having all of these things together. Also, if there are things that we didn't answer for you now, I think we're like, I still have my notebook out and we'll still be writing. So please ask for things. Good luck, Jules, with your having to go at it. Good luck, all of you. We are so excited for the work you're doing to bring citizen science to more people. It's totally awesome.
A round of applause to our friends from Science Friday, Ariel and Sochi, who gave their time and their expertise today. Especially Sochi, who she's lost her voice, but she still spoke to us virtually at times.
Still
and Ariel
a pro facilitator.
For showing us how to model your cell phone and all. But just both of you, thank you so much.
You bet. Our absolute pleasure. Thanks for the claps, everyone.
Yes.
And the email list. Somebody has asked for a link to join the email list.
Yeah, you can. I'll put that in the chat right now. It's scistarter.org/Citizen Science Month FAQ.
Okay.
I'm surprised more people didn't write cow throughout the presentation.
We actually, yeah. And I was also excited we had like an equal number of raccoon dogs to cows, and somebody who knew the actual name of a raccoon dog, which I keep forgetting. That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and Facebook audience, we haven't forgotten about you either. So we will be circling back to the questions that are lingering there as well, making sure that we get those answered. Tanuki, thank you, Haley. That's so awesome. All right, well, and I think, yes, my next webinar is starting in 20, so next meeting. Do you need to install Zoom on your phone to switch to the phone's camera while you're presenting as you did earlier? I did. I use the Zoom app. That's a really good question. And it's still presenting if you look in the panelist window. The big caveats I will say is it runs out of battery pretty quickly. So you might want your phone to join late during the presentation. And sometimes it can get hot. So like don't put your phone in the sun and then also Zoom for an entire presentation because it will light on fire. Or at least try to. It is a good reminder. I think I'm going to unjoin my phone. I think at this point we could probably call it, team. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think thank you again, and talk to you all soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And we're ending it.